So imagine having a tumor and being told that you had swollen lymph nodes for months. Let's talk about it. If you're not familiar with me, which you probably are not, my name is Candace Monique, and this is my very first video. I wanted to take you all on a journey of understanding what it feels like to be diagnosed with a tumor. Now, to God be the glory, mine was benign, but this is something that they didn't know where it came from, how I got it, don't know how to prevent it, and I just wanted to create a little bit of content around it because it is a thing. So, welcome. About a year ago, so January 2024, I went to the doctor because I kept having like sinus infections, and what I thought was sinus infections at the time. It was like the drainage, the postnasal drip, all of that. My ears were hurting, and I just initially thought it came from flying, right? Because I fly a lot, I travel a lot, so I thought that maybe my ears was, I just had enough. So I'm going back and forth to the doctor, and they're giving me antibiotics, and they're saying, oh, it's, your lymph nodes are swollen from the infection. It'll clear up. And I'm like, all right, if that's what you're saying, cool. So it would clear up the ear infection, and then it would come right back. Clear it up, come right back. Went through that for a couple months. Then I started having the ear pain and fluid. And so I'm like, all right, now sinus infection, now we're dealing with that, drainage, we're dealing with my ears, now they're hurting, feeling like they're full of water all the time. And they couldn't say anything besides, oh, it's probably just ear infection mixed with the sinus infection. And I'm like, all right, strange, but okay. So then March of 2024, this lump, probably no bigger than the size of a nickel, right? Might have been a little smaller than that, but this lump appears under my jaw. And I'm like, all right, well, what is this? It's a new symptom. And so now I'm like, okay, this can't be right. I go back to the doctor. They say, oh, it's, your lymph nodes are swollen. Well, just that one, because the other one was not. And it came from having the infection for such a long time. So they said. And so I went on about my business. And keep in mind, it wasn't bothering anything. So it's not like it was causing me pain or something that needed to be alerted. And of course, I Googled it like everybody else do. And it was like, oh, it should be painful, this, that, and the third, swelling. I ain't had none of that. It was just there, taking up space, rent free. So I decided that, at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this ENT. So I went to an ENT, and they did x-rays, the whole nine. And I'm talking to them, and they're talking to me about a deviated septum surgery. They're like, oh, you can't breathe out of your nose because you have a deviated septum, you need surgery. And I'm like, well, what that got to do with the lump under my jaw? And like I don't understand. And I had an x-ray done, but they just dismissed it and told me it was a swollen lymph node and that I just need to keep an eye on it. All right, so another month passes, and at this point, I'm like, all right, I've had this too long, I don't care, I'm finding all new everybody. So that's when I found a new, I went ahead and found a new primary care physician, and I went to see her. So I'm talking to her, she's asking me questions about the lump that appeared and all of my symptoms, and immediately she's like, yeah, that's not right. That's not right. I don't like how that sounds. I want you to go get an ultrasound. Okay, cool. So I go and I get an ultrasound, and this ultrasound, of course, those are painless. I get there, they do the ultrasound, the results finally come back from that, and with those results, they told me that I needed to go and get an MRI. Now, at this point, what's going through my mind is, okay, I had the ultrasound, now it's time to get an MRI. Could it be cancer? I hope not. But hey, at this point, I'm trying to do my best to stay positive. But a lot of things were going through my mind at that point. It was scary. But I go and I get the MRI. And everybody was so nice. I got the MRI. I had to wait for those results. Those came back, and they told me, hey, you need to go get a biopsy. All right. So now we're getting closer to an answer, but we're also getting closer to the fact that I have to deal with the mental part of whether or not I'm going to be diagnosed with cancer. And that's a lot to unpack. You know, I will always advocate for you to go and see and go and check on yourself. If your body doesn't feel right or something's not right, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. And if you don't get the right answer from the doctor you need to get it, that's what second opinions are for. Okay? So anywho, I go and I get the biopsy. It was a fine needle biopsy. And I am not going to lie to you, it was painful. Oh my goodness. I didn't really know what to expect, but they had to stick probably about 20 needles, fine needles, into the lump. So underneath the surface of the skin, but into the lump, because they needed to figure out exactly whether or not it was cancerous. And so I had that done, got through it, and had to wait about 7 days. It took about 7 days for those to come back. And I'm gonna tell you, during that 7-day time period, that is when it really started to hit me mentally. That is when I really started to have conversations, right? I needed to understand like what was going on and what could be. Now, God is that's my foundation. He is my foundation. And I had to lean on him during this process because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be dealing with, what my life was going to look like, and what changes would have to take place. And it was a fight, right? Like, it was a huge fight for me mentally because I had to stay positive, you know, because the things that what you say out your mouth can turn into reality. So I had two choices to make. I had a choice of, are you going to approach this from a woe is me, why me standpoint? Or are you going to approach it from a standpoint of, you know what, let's tackle this thing head on. I'm going to put God first, and I'm going to do what he tell me to do. And we going and whatever is happening is written that way. I decided to go with that philosophy. So I waited for my results. They came back. And to God be the glory. To God be the glory. It was not cancerous. And I was relieved, right? Like, I was relieved. I was so relieved that it wasn't cancerous. But at the same time, God had told me that you got some stuff you need to work on. And so during this time, I got the non-cancer diagnosis, and I know that it does not work that way for everyone. And that is why, you know, I took a moment to just be grateful, because I know that it could have gone a different way. One thing I will say is that even if you get an undesirable outcome, we have to remember whose we are and who our Father is. It's important to keep your mental and your mind focused 100% on positivity, healing, and recovery. But I'm not gonna lie, it takes you through journeys of looking at your life and figuring out what you need to fix, what you need to do. And I spent time doing that. Now, for me, before this, I felt fear around a lot of things, right? Like fear of the unknown, fear, having control issues, just fear. Fear really held me captive. And having to go through this journey, I learned that there's nothing that I need to fear. I need to do what I was put here to do. That is one of the takeaways I took from this whole journey. And not to get too far away, because I can get into my emotions and we'll be here. And y'all will be here. It'll be a whole hour video and I can get into my emotions, and we're not gonna do that. So let's get back on track. So They tell me that it's not cancer. I'm relieved. And now it's time to schedule like the next steps, which would be the surgery. Okay, so I am, I've never been through surgery. This would be my first major surgery. Totally nervous about it. I ain't even gonna lie. And probably what made me nervous the most is being put to sleep. Yeah, wasn't used to the thought of that. So, if I keep looking down, guys, it's because I got some notes here. I just didn't want to miss anything or get too far off track. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But yeah, so it's time for the surgery, and I get the surgery done, and the recovery begins. Now, what's interesting is once the tumor was removed, I had a lot of other symptoms be alleviated with that. Like, I had horrible acid reflux. I couldn't eat anything, couldn't drink anything without getting acid reflux, having to take Gaviscon and Pepcid AC to just manage the symptoms. I did not connect them together until after the surgery, and I'm like, oh, I don't have the acid reflux anymore. Like, I didn't have to take it. I could eat pretty much, what I wanted and didn't have, the acid reflux. So that was a plus. I was getting sleep again. Because, when the saliva gland the tumor was sitting on the outside of my saliva gland, which was pressing on the nerves. So that was causing like me to not be able to swallow as much as I needed to. And that in turn was creating mucus and in the sinuses, and the acid, all of that stuff was tied together. And these symptoms didn't look like anything in the beginning. So I got the surgery. It was outpatient, thankfully. I had an excellent doctor. He did excellent. Now I will say, in that gland, there are a lot of nerves that run through that gland. So you have to be, your doctor would have to be very, very, very careful. And my doctor was excellent. He used a nerve monitor to make sure that he didn't hit any of the nerves or even get close. So there was no damage that took place. But you have to talk to your physician about their process and how they do things. But took about 7 days for me to recover. And that was for like the swelling in my face to go down. Sorry for the phone ringing, guys. It distracted me just a little bit, but it's okay. Took about 7 days for the swelling to go down and for me to kind of feel like myself. Now, my doctor, he did give me a drain. I only had it for 24 hours. And the drain was just to make sure that the fluid didn't back up. Like, he didn't want to seal the incision with the fluid drain, like the fluid backing up. So he just put a drain in. So I had that for 24 hours. I went in the next day and he took it out. No big deal. I truly didn't have to take any hardcore pain medicine. I took it the first day. They gave me like hydrocodone or something like that. I took that the first day. And then after that, I switched to Tylenol. Tylenol, Advil. By day 7 or 8, the swelling was pretty much gone, and I didn't really have to worry about that much. But yeah, it was a simple procedure, nothing too crazy. I didn't have to get stitches. My doctor used surgery glue to seal up the incision, and pretty much after probably about 8 days, the glue actually came off and his incision was closed, and he put it pretty much like in the creases of my neck so that the scar would be like kind of hidden. So I had an excellent doctor, and I'm so grateful for him. Now, what I will say is there are a few things that I took away from this whole procedure after everything was said and done. One is the gratitude for life. Understanding that life can change in an instant. One day you can be doing one thing and the next day something totally different has happened. What I have learned is that my mindset around life, my life, being grateful for what I have, all of those things matter to me now. And I'm much more willing to be outside of my comfort zone than in, just because life can change in an instant. If I had to give any advice, it would be listen to your body. Listen to your body. Your body will never lie to you. I had several doctors tell me that it was a swollen lymph node. I had several doctors tell me it was nothing I needed to worry about. It was nothing serious. I had one doctor tell me that this wasn't right. I had one ENT tell me that this needed to be removed ASAP. While mine was not cancerous, I know that a lot of people have similar stories where they've gone through situations, and depending on their doctors, because that's what we feel like we're supposed to do, and it turns out not to be what we expected it to be. And what I don't want is for people to wait until it's too late. If there is something off and you feel like it's something off, go check about it. If they don't tell you what you need to hear, find somebody else and have them look at it. That is what second opinions are for. Do not fall into the woe is me attitude. And I know it's easier said than done. I understand that. But one thing I will say is that saved me. I'll be a little transparent even more. God told me specifically how to tell my family and friends about my diagnosis, about my circumstances. Because he didn't want me to overwhelm myself or everyone else at one time. So I told my husband and my mother. Then he told me I could tell this person and this person, this person and that person. And I was able to roll it out in a way where I kept my mental intact. Because I didn't have time to deal with the, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, or what's going on. I didn't have time for the crying and the emotional. I needed to be focused. I needed to be positive, and I needed people to be strong. So I followed that, you know. I know not everybody believes in God, but that is who I believe in, and it got me through. He got me through, as he always does. But it's important that you keep a positive mindset when you're getting information that is just not something that you're prepared for. And there's no way to be prepared for negative experiences or negative information. So don't get trapped into that mindset. Try to take it head on. Try to be as positive as you can. And make sure if if something don't feel right, get a second opinion. Get a third if you need to. It's your body. Just to wrap it up for me, I appreciate you if you've made it to the end of this video. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me while I tell you about my journey. Life happens to all of us. Life is going to happen to all of us. The most important thing we need to remember is to stay positive. Keep your mindset in check, and that includes the people around you. For me, God is my source, and I chose not to lean on my own understanding, but his. All right, if y'all have any questions that I can answer, leave them down in the comments. I hope you have a good day. Peace.